A major disruption tonight in an international fentanyl operation stretching from China to Cincinnati and Dayton.
Federal investigation results in more than 24 indictments.
FBI Director Kash Patel was in town today saying local traffickers teamed up with Chinese chemical companies to flood our streets with these deadly drugs.
The clock struck 3:45 in the morning when the silence over Chicago was shattered forever. While the city slept, federal agents were already moving through the darkness, carrying warrants that would expose the most shocking foreign infiltration of American soil in modern history. What they discovered in those pre-dawn hours would send shockwaves through Washington and reveal how a trusted diplomatic ally had been secretly fueling the deadliest drug crisis America has ever faced. This isn't just another cartel bust. This is the story of how the FBI and DEA uncovered a sophisticated criminal network operating under the protection of diplomatic immunity, moving billions in narcotics while hiding behind embassy seals and international treaties. By sunrise, 106 suspects would be in federal custody, millions in cash and drugs seized, and the American people would learn that their most dangerous enemies weren't hiding in shadows. They were sitting behind embassy desks. If you think corruption can't reach the highest levels of international diplomacy, you're about to discover just how wrong that assumption can be. Hit like now, because what I'm about to reveal will change how you view diplomatic relations forever. For months, federal investigators tracking the flow of fentanyl through the Midwest noticed something that made absolutely no sense. The supply chains were too clean, the logistics too perfect, the protection too sophisticated for any ordinary criminal organization. Shipments moved with military precision. Chemical precursors arrived exactly on schedule. Money flowed through channels that seemed untouchable by law enforcement. Then a single name appeared in encrypted communications seized from a CJNG safehouse. At first, analysts assumed it was another cartel accountant or logistics coordinator. They were catastrophically wrong. When cyber teams finally cracked the encryption and cross-referenced the name with diplomatic records, the discovery sent federal leadership into emergency session. The name was Ambassador Jianwei Ming, the Chinese ambassador to the United States, a man with full diplomatic immunity, unrestricted global communication access, and the power to move cargo through protected diplomatic channels without customs inspection. Within 18 months of his arrival in Washington, fentanyl precursor imports had surged over 400% through the Chicago corridor. This wasn't coincidence. This was coordination. Intelligence analysts working around the clock began mapping the network that had been hiding in plain sight. 23 front companies spread across Illinois, Wisconsin, and Indiana, all connected through shell ownership structures and offshore financial routing. Chemical importers bringing in mislabeled industrial solvents that tested positive for high-purity fentanyl precursors. Logistics firms receiving regular diplomatic consignments that bypassed every security screening protocol. The most disturbing discovery came from internal embassy communications recovered during a separate investigation. Documents marked for internal use only outlined something called the Strategic Integration Plan for the Chicago Corridor. The directive was crystal clear. Ensure uninterrupted flow. Priority access for chemical partners is authorized. The signature at the bottom belonged to Ambassador Jianwei Ming himself. Federal prosecutors had uncovered something unprecedented in American law enforcement history. A foreign diplomatic official wasn't just aware of cartel operations on U.S. soil. He was actively designing and protecting them. The Chicago Trade Corridor, America's logistics heartland, had been transformed into a protected pipeline for the world's deadliest synthetic drugs. The implications were staggering. If one ambassador could construct this level of criminal infrastructure in under 2 years, what else had gone undetected? How many other commercial partnerships were operating under diplomatic cover? How many American cities had unknowingly become nodes in foreign-controlled drug distribution networks? At 4:03 that morning, a single command echoed across federal radio frequencies. All units advance. Multiple foreign actors confirmed. Secure all targets. Move now. What followed wasn't just a raid. It was a coordinated federal strike designed to collapse an entire logistics system before it could react or destroy evidence. 5 separate locations across the Chicago metropolitan area were hit simultaneously by joint FBI, DEA, and ICE tactical teams. The first breach came in Cicero, where armored vehicles rolled through residential streets like steel shadows cutting through the pre-dawn fog. ICE tactical units formed a tight perimeter around a narrow block of houses that intelligence had identified as a primary stash location. As agents approached the target residence, a lookout burst through a side door carrying an assault rifle. The night exploded with the deafening crack of a flashbang grenade before the gunman could take aim. Inside the secured building, federal agents discovered heat-sealed bricks of fentanyl arranged with military precision, each package stamped with the CJNG Eagle emblem. Fresh product, recently delivered, ready for distribution across the Midwest. But these weren't ordinary drug bundles. They were packaged in containers bearing Chinese diplomatic shipping seals. Across town in Bridgeview, DEA agents were encountering the heaviest resistance of the morning. Hydraulic rams shattered reinforced steel doors as sparks flew and alarms screamed through the industrial complex. The warehouse interior revealed a maze of fake storage shelves concealing an active chemical processing laboratory. Vapors drifted from freshly used glassware and industrial reactors, proof that this wasn't just storage. This was manufacturing. A gunshot cracked through the chemical haze as suspects opened fire from behind metal partitions. Federal agents returned precision fire while advancing under ballistic shields, their training evident in every controlled movement. The resistance collapsed when a battering ram crushed the dividing wall, forcing the remaining suspects to surrender with their hands raised and weapons discarded. Under a concealed floor panel, investigators made their first explosive discovery of the operation. Industrial containers stamped with official Chinese diplomatic seals, filled with the exact same precursor chemicals that intelligence had traced to Ambassador Jen's commercial network. The diplomatic protection that should have been used for legitimate international business had become a shield for industrial-scale drug manufacturing. The most dangerous confrontation erupted at the Joliet facility, where ATF teams encountered organized resistance from cartel enforcers. As agents cut through the security gate of a trucking compound, two gunmen opened fire from behind stacked trailers, muzzle flashes lighting up the darkness like deadly fireworks. The tactical teams advanced methodically using armored shields, their discipline and training allowing them to push forward under fire until both shooters were neutralized and secured. Inside the trailers, federal agents uncovered assault rifles wrapped in protective oilcloth, their serial numbers deliberately defaced, but later traced to weapons trafficking routes moving through Central America. These weren't street-level drug dealers. These were professional enforcers equipped with military-grade hardware and operating with the kind of coordination that suggested foreign backing and training. The final target in Brighton Park yielded the most shocking evidence of the entire operation. FBI hostage rescue teams approached the warehouse using drone surveillance to monitor all possible escape routes. When the breach signal came, agents stormed the facility from 3 different directions in perfect synchronization. What they found inside stopped even veteran federal investigators in their tracks. A concealed elevator led to a sub-level storage chamber lined with industrial-grade containers stacked with scientific precision. 5 tons of processed narcotics, 37 military-style firearms, $76 million in cash and financial ledgers, and a file labeled C-Channel line that would change everything. On the first page of that file was a direct payment authorization bearing the official signature of Ambassador Jen Wei-Ming. Diplomatic immunity had been weaponized to protect the deadliest drug network in American history. By 5:12 that morning, all 5 target locations were secured. 106 suspects detained without a single civilian casualty. But the evidence recovered from those raids would trigger a federal response unlike anything seen in recent American law enforcement history. The battle for Chicago was only the beginning. The evidence seized from Brighton Park's sub-level chamber triggered an immediate crisis response that reached the highest levels of American government. By 7:40 that morning, a classified conference call was already underway between the Attorney General, Department of Homeland Security leadership, and senior FBI counterintelligence officials. The encrypted files bearing Ambassador Jen Wei-Ming's signature represented something unprecedented in modern diplomatic history. For the first time, the United States had concrete proof that a foreign ambassador was directly enabling a major transnational criminal organization. There was no time for diplomatic protocol or international consultation. Federal leadership authorized Operation Emerald Gate, a classified mission designed to confront an unprecedented threat. A criminal pipeline protected by diplomatic immunity and operating with apparent state backing. The target wasn't the main Chinese embassy compound, which remained protected by international treaties and diplomatic conventions. Instead, intelligence had identified a commercial coordination facility 30 miles outside Washington. Technically classified as an auxiliary embassy office, the building operated under embassy authority but lacked the full immunity protections of the main diplomatic compound. This legal distinction created a narrow window of opportunity that federal leadership was prepared to exploit before evidence could be destroyed or diplomatic pressure could shut down the investigation. FBI counterintelligence units and HSI tactical teams moved under absolute secrecy. To avoid triggering diplomatic panic or international incident, the operation was kept off standard radio channels. Only hardened point-to-point encrypted devices were authorized for communication between strike teams. As the federal convoy approached the target building, surveillance drones confirmed suspicious activity inside. Lights flickered erratically between rooms. Server equipment was being powered down in rapid sequence. 2 individuals moved hastily through the corridors carrying what appeared to be storage devices and document containers. At 10:19 that morning, Operation Emerald Gate commenced. FBI hostage rescue teams deployed precision breaching charges at the rear service entrance. The controlled explosion rippled down the hallway, scattering papers and triggering security alarms throughout the facility. Federal agents pushed inside with tactical precision, ballistic shields raised and weapons ready, their commands echoing through corridors that had never before heard American law enforcement. From the second floor came the unmistakable sounds of frantic activity. Metal scraping against concrete, rapid footsteps on industrial flooring. A man attempted to flee through a side stairwell, clutching a hard drive wrapped in electromagnetic shielding foam. Federal agents intercepted him halfway down the emergency exit. His resistance quickly overcome as he was forced to the ground and secured with restraints. Inside the server room, 2 embassy-linked staffers had barricaded themselves behind reinforced glass panels. They were actively initiating a remote data purge, attempting to destroy terabytes of evidence before federal agents could secure the facility. The lead tactical officer made a split-second decision that would preserve crucial intelligence. Thermal charge now. The reinforced door shattered under a small explosive breach, and agents flooded the server room before the data destruction could be completed. One suspect lunged toward a master console, desperately trying to complete the electronic evidence destruction. Another reached for a secure phone, likely attempting to warn other network nodes. Both were subdued within seconds, their efforts to obstruct justice adding federal charges to an already devastating case. The real shock came when cyber specialists examined the seized equipment. 12 servers, each labeled with internal embassy coding systems, had been actively transferring classified data to overseas destinations when the raid commenced. Federal cyber teams severed the uplink cables before the transfer could be completed, preserving terabytes of intelligence that would later reveal the true scope of the criminal network. In a locked cabinet beneath the main server console, agents discovered binders stamped with official Chinese government insignia. Inside were detailed chemical procurement lists, transit schedules through Midwest warehouses, shipping manifests for diplomatic cargo, and financial routing instructions for cartel money laundering operations. The final document in the collection carried a typed directive that left no doubt about the ambassador's direct involvement. Ensure uninterrupted flow. Coordination with CJNG finance teams is authorized. The signature belonged to Jen Wei Ming. Operation Emerald Gate concluded with 7 embassy-affiliated personnel in federal custody and a treasure trove of classified materials secured as evidence. The tactical phase lasted less than 10 minutes, but it represented a historic rupture in diplomatic relations. For the first time in decades, the United States had conducted a federal law enforcement operation against a foreign diplomatic outpost directly connected to transnational criminal activity. The fallout was immediate and explosive. Within hours, encrypted communications were intercepted between Chinese diplomatic facilities across the United States. Emergency meetings were called at the State Department. Congressional leaders demanded immediate briefings on the scope of the threat. Cable networks began running continuous coverage of what media outlets were calling the most serious diplomatic crisis since the Cold War. But federal investigators knew the truth was even more disturbing than initial reports suggested. The data seized from the Shadow Embassy facility didn't just expose a single conspiracy. It unveiled a comprehensive map showing the true extent of foreign criminal infiltration into American soil. 14 factories, warehouses, and import companies scattered across Illinois, Wisconsin, and Indiana, each directly tied to Ambassador Jen's commercial network through shell corporations and offshore financial structures. These weren't ordinary businesses operating with diplomatic connections. They were engineered nodes in a foreign-controlled criminal grid specifically designed to supply, shield, and fund CJNG's deadly operations inside the United States. The network had been constructed with the precision of a military operation and the ruthlessness of a cartel, creating an infrastructure capable of withstanding traditional law enforcement while regenerating faster than conventional criminal organizations. The first target in the expanded operation was a chemical processing facility in Kenosha, Wisconsin. On paper, the company manufactured industrial solvents for legitimate commercial applications. In reality, federal intelligence had identified it as the largest fentanyl precursor hub in the entire Midwest region. The facility had been operating under diplomatic commercial protection for nearly 3 years, processing tons of mislabeled chemicals imported through Ambassador Jen's protected shipping channels. At dawn, DHS tactical teams stormed through the main loading bay as workers scrambled in panic. Barrels toppled and alarms screamed through the industrial complex as some employees fled toward emergency exits while others hurled shipping crates in desperate attempts to block advancing federal agents. The chaos revealed the scale of the operation. This wasn't a small-scale drug lab. This was industrial-level chemical processing designed to supply cartel superlabs across multiple states. Inside the main laboratory area, toxic fumes filled the air from stainless steel vats bubbling with incomplete chemical reactions. Federal chemists later confirmed that the compounds matched the exact molecular signatures of precursor chemicals traced to Ambassador Jen's diplomatic import network. In an upstairs administrative office, agents discovered a concealed safe containing foreign passports, encrypted communication devices, and detailed ledgers marked with coded initials that intelligence analysis later connected to CJNG financial operations. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. America's diplomatic system had been weaponized against the American people, and the full scope of the betrayal was only beginning to emerge. What unfolded in those pre-dawn hours over Chicago represents more than the largest foreign-backed criminal takedown in modern American history. It stands as proof that when the safety and security of the American people comes under attack, this nation responds with precision, power, and unwavering resolve. 106 arrests, millions in narcotics seized, a diplomatic criminal empire dismantled in a single coordinated strike. But the deeper lesson cuts to the heart of American vigilance. The greatest threats to our homeland don't always cross borders in darkness or hide in criminal shadows. Sometimes they walk through the front door wearing diplomatic credentials and operating behind the shield of international immunity. Ambassador Jen Ming's network proved that corruption can reach the highest levels of global diplomacy, turning trusted institutions into weapons against the very people they're meant to serve. The courage of federal agents who risked everything to expose this betrayal reminds us that America's strength lies not just in our military might or economic power, but in the character of those who refuse to let evil flourish in silence. From the streets of Chicago to the halls of Washington, this operation sent a clear message to any foreign actor who believes they can infiltrate, corrupt, or poison America from within. You will be found, you will be stopped, and you will face the full weight of American justice. If you believe these stories of courage and accountability must be told, hit like and subscribe, because the fight for America's security never ends, and your voice ensures these victories are never forgotten.